So, the conversation around drug abuse has shifted dramatically. It is no longer a remote issue discussed in reports and conferences. It is unfolding in real time within our neighborhoods, our schools and workplaces.
Indeed, and recent data show that a large number of young Nigerians are affected, placing the country among those with the highest figures on the continent.
And the breadth of the problem is striking, with millions of Nigerians between 15 and 64 involved in drug abuse, far above the global average. The data from states like Lagos, Oyo, and Ondo makes one thing very clear. Now, this is a national crisis demanding urgent attention.
Urgent attention, we must mention that again. And what makes the situation even more concerning is how easy people can access these drugs.
Now, from socially accepted substances and prescription medications to dangerous hard drugs like methamphetamine, popularly called Murumiri, many young people are pulled in by pressure, stress, or simple availability.
Unfortunately, what starts off as casual use rarely remains harmless. Dependency develops quickly, and the fallout is severe, ranging from mental health challenges and organ failure to increased exposure to HIV, hepatitis, criminal activity, and fractured family structures.
Now, cannabis continues to dominate usage rates, with opioids such as tramadol and codeine not far behind, particularly among the youth population.
Authorities have not been idle. Of course, the NDLEA, for instance, has intensified its efforts through arrests, major drug seizures, like you hear in the news all the time, expanded rehabilitation services, and community outreach initiatives.
Yet, experts agree that policing alone cannot fix the problem. Sustainable solutions lie in prevention, stronger legislation, modern policies, early education, active parenting, accessible treatment facilities, and meaningful economic opportunities for young people.
At the end of the day, protecting our future is a shared duty. Yeah, one that calls for collaboration across government, communities, families, and individuals alike. So today, we'll be talking to experts on how the country can curb drug addiction. Many thanks for joining us. Good morning, Nigeria, this Friday. It's a pleasure to have you with us. I'm Henry John.
And I am Victor, as welcome to the program. All right, you're still watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. And just before we bring in our guests to speak on the issue of drug abuse in Nigeria, let's take this background report, and it is put together by Ibrahim Belogunda.
Drug and substance abuse in Nigeria has reached alarming proportions, affecting an estimated 20 to 40% of the youth population. This crisis poses a serious public health threat, jeopardizing the health, well-being, and future of the country's younger generation. According to the 2018 United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime report, Nigeria has one of the highest rates of drug abuse in Africa, with approximately 14.3 million people using psychoactive substances. These substances most commonly abused include cannabis, tramadol, codeine, and heroin, with emerging trend showing increasing abuse of synthetic drugs. The National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA, reports that nearly 15 million Nigerians aged 15 to 64 currently use drugs, almost 3 times the global average. This means that 1 in every 7 Nigerians within the age group consume drugs. The 2018 NDLEA National Drug Use Survey further highlights the scale of the program in specific states. Lagos, 33% prevalence rate, representing about 2 million users. Oyo State, 24% prevalence rate. Ondo State, 17% prevalence rate, roughly 400,000 users. Over the past 5 years, the NDLEA has intensified enforcement, arresting 77,792 suspects, including 128 high-profile drug barons, seizing more than 14.8 million kilograms of illicit substances and securing convictions for 14,225 offenders. The survey also revealed that approximately 376,000 individuals with drug use disorder were in contact with treatment centers, underscoring the urgent need for comprehensive prevention and rehabilitation strategies. As Nigeria grappled with this crisis, key questions remain: what step is the government taking to combat drug abuse? What additional strategies could effectively reduce addiction? And how can government and community leaders collaborate to support individuals struggling with substance use? These questions and more will be explored on Good Morning Nigeria as we examine the challenges and solutions in curbing drug addiction across the country.
Thanks, Ibrahim Bello Gunda, for that background report. Let's now bring in our guests as we dive into the topic for today. It's a pleasure to have with us Dr. Hope Omaiza, founder, Vanguard Against Drug Abuse, VGADA, and Executive Director, VGADA Rehabilitation Center. Many thanks for joining us, sir.
Thank you very much for having me. Good morning, Nigerians.
All right. Also here for the conversation is Dr. Olusegun Soyombo, consultant psychiatrist at the National Hospital, Abuja. It's a pleasure to have you, Doctor.
Thank you. Good morning.
All right. We have also been joined here in the studio by Rukayat Jumai Husseini, who is a lawyer and founder of a Confluence Amazon's Charitable Foundation. We're glad you could join us on Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning. Good morning, Nigerians.
All right. Let's begin this conversation. And I'd like to ask Mr. Omaiza, Dr. Hope Omaiza, how big is the drug problem that Nigeria has in 2026?
Well, thank you very much again. We have just heard a report put together by, a journalist stating the result of the research way back 2018, 2017. Now that says we are behind real-time research for about 8 years. And so this is 2026. So if we have 14.3 million Nigerians using in 2017-18, then we can do the maths in our head. It says that the current burden of drug use in Nigeria is way bigger than what it is currently. Than what it was in 2017-2018. I say this because last year I embarked on a local research coupled with local community-based drug rehab care program in Kogi State. And we're in 5 wards doing this community-based drug rehab program for 3 months. And we saw that some of the dynamics, some of the results that were stated in 2017, they have begun to change in terms of the kind of drugs people abuse now, why they use them. And of course, the number of youths that we're using vis-a-vis the proportion of the number of youth that were interviewed. Last year, again, I think one online poll, NOI polls, had invited me to speak on their own research. They are an online poll organization. And you see that their research was capturing about 40% of young Nigerians using drugs, which is way bigger than what the National Drug Use Survey, is giving us.
Why has the burden increased?
For obvious reasons. You see, there are many factors to why the burden of drug abuse in Nigeria is increasing. And it may not have changed from the factors that we are all aware before, but there are newer factors now, e.g., the whole seeking for sensations by young people. The peer pressures may have increased because social media is beginning to be part of one reason why we are having a smaller world now. Because you can be in your room and get influenced by someone online. You don't have to get out of your room to get influenced by a peer. So it means someone you have not even seen before all your life, because you scroll past and Facebook or any social media handle brings to your view their picture. So what they are doing could influence what you want to do. So you see, this can be a factor why we are having a rise in drug abuse. Like I said, the factors that were prevalent before are still there, but we're having newer factors today. Yeah.
Many thanks, Dr. Omaiza. Let's get to Dr. Soyombo now. It doesn't look like this problem is going away. And I'm wondering why. You're a psychiatrist. You get to interact with some of these patients. What do you think is the main drive for them?
The problem is certainly not going away. There are push and pull factors. So what you call the supply end of it and the demand end of it. Of course, the drug supply end of it will always be handled by the NDLEA, but it is an important factor. The people who sell these drugs, they are in business for money. If people don't take their drugs, they don't make money. So people even offer free drugs. Oh, try it, because they know that when you try it, you get hooked on it, and you will come back. There's a newspaper clip of a few years ago where NAFDAC said someone offered NAFDAC officials a bribe of 1 billion naira. Now, if you are offering a bribe of 1 billion, what's the value of the commodity that you are pushing to be able to offer a bribe of 1 billion? Historically, a society will first be a transit point before it becomes a using point. So some of these drugs used to pass through our country to go to North America and South America and things like that. And then one day it's just going to seep into the community. Why do the trouble of traveling far when there are people here that can buy your heroin, your cocaine, your weed, and things like that? Then you come to the demand side of it, and Dr. Meza has mentioned some of those things. People who are seeking sensation. Now, let us take a cue from football. Several years ago, Alex Ferguson, Arsene Wenger, they used to smoke on the touchline until there was a ban on touchline smoking. You can't see any football coach or sports person openly using substances. Have we been that responsible with our media? What do we see in our music videos? What do we see in our own videos? What are the young people watching and taking a cue from? So if we model bad behavior, we cannot be surprised that the drug use is increasing. So demand and the supply.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Shoyombo. Let's get the other part of this. How involved are women and girls in all of this?
I think the rate of women involvement in drug abuse is actually very high. Though I can't give you the accurate statistic now. At the Confluence Amazon, our main objective, we are actually education advocates. And in the course of taking people back to school, dropouts especially, research shows that in the course of trying to integrate them, we have to find out why are they even dropping out of school. We discovered that one of the main problems in the school system is drug. And what is making them to be involved in drugs are some family value sector, just like you have asked the involvement of women. You see that some children are actually in school, but they are lonely. What I mean by loneliness is we could be here together as we are all seated here now, but I discovered that I'm on my own. The loneliness comes in the place that some parents call their kids while they are in school, at whatever level they are. How are you this morning? Have you woken up? You follow their curriculum. What are they doing in school? You monitor them. But unfortunately, the family system now, especially the women, some of us, when you even ask us as women, what class is the child? They don't even know it, because we are all running up and down to meet up our economic and financial stability in the country. You understand? We know that things are hard, but women have a lot of role to play. You need to check on your kids very well, because women are the first counselors in the home before the school. And on the government side again, counseling system does not function the way it is in the past. We will talk about rehabilitation to curb drug system in Nigeria, drug abuse in this country. I think we should even start to have the fight from prevention. Because when it is being prevented in the first place, you don't even go into the crime and rehabilitation. And if you look at it, very critical, women have a lot of role to play. Because in the home, you as a mother, if you are checking, you know the early signs of drug abuse. When the child begins to demand for a lot of money while in school, a child that you are giving 20,000 before, he will constantly always say, want to buy and that wants to see. it's good for you to check what is happening to that child. So women have a lot of role to sit, to check on what their kids are doing, whether they are within the home system or they are in the school.
Does it seem that like the female gender
Yes.
is more hidden when we talk about drug problem? Are they more hidden in plain sight than their male counterparts?
They are not hidden. They are not hidden, but I don't know whether NDLA has successfully been able to checkmate the statistic of the gender levels of the female and the male. But we have them among them. Most of these people that go into trafficking sexually, they don't do it under their naked eyes. You cannot separate drug from crime. Mm-hmm. Because some of them get, just like doctor said, that they go to get them sensitized. You don't do it ordinarily with your naked eyes. So we have a lot of women, even the women that are depressed in the home, they feel they go on, they take dependence to be able to get satisfied.
Okay, many thanks, Madam Rukiat. Let's get back to Dr. Omeza now. As we talk about this, recent remarks on social media by some, well, they call them celebrities or families, and you've heard husbands accusing wives, wives accusing husbands of substance abuse and all of that. And you ask yourself, what happened to the campaigns or the slogans that, drug use is bad, or, why is it becoming a norm? I mean, in the past, simple things like don't steal. This is the repercussion for this. Or if you're dirty, let's even use dirty. If you're dirty, this is what happens to you. Eventually, you smell and all of that. Drugs also used to have such slogans, such campaigns that people you just stay away from it. Why is there an attraction now? Why are those slogans, or if you like, those things we used to know about drugs being bad, not taking center stage?
Well, you see, my chief here had mentioned that there are pull and push factors. If you have the same efforts on the push and the same efforts on the pull, acting on an individual, you realize that the person will not move. So if somebody is pulling you forward, something else is pushing you backward, then chances are that you will not move from where you are if it is the same effort being used to bring about this force. Now look at it. If we are having increase in factors that can lead people to substance use, mind you, there are no specific causes of drug abuse. We're all talking about risk factors. Now, so if there are increase in social media usage, uncontrolled, if we have now models who can proudly take a stick of cigarettes or wrap their marijuana and smoke, or even hold some cup and you are seeing playing that this cup there's something inside this cup, some colorish, maybe greenish or something, or you are seeing musicians who will bring out their tongue and there's discoloration on their tongue, so, and if we allow these on our either mainstream or social media or whatever, then you would know that you are increasing the tendency. You are putting more investment on what will push people to the use of substance. While the slogan of don't use drug is no longer effective, that might explain it in part. Secondly, it is also known that every time you pick a pack of cigarettes, you will see the smokers are liable to die young. They still smoke. In fact, the last time I saw one, I saw a mouth as if has to have a mouth cancer or so. But then it doesn't stop the person who is smoking cigarettes from smoking. Now, so you see, something may be wrong with our messaging, which is one thing that must be done. There are different messaging for different age group. Over time, we've always used these scare tactics to try to help people to stop doing certain behaviors. Now, that has to be checked. You go to a primary school and you are telling them if you take drug, you go mad. And then you play a video to them where someone took drug and is going mad on the street. But that same child knows an uncle who takes drug and is not mad. In fact, even more financially responsible to them than their father who is not smoking. So that child is simply going to feel like this uncle can lie. And then once they feel like you are lying to them, they don't trust you anymore. So whatever you say may not work. So the campaign of say no to drug abuse, say this, is not working. When we started my organization in 2017, we were usually going on rallies, just talking on megaphone, saying no to drug abuse, to people who are not even listening to you. So all of these things has to change, because over the years, you need to sit back and look at what are the effectiveness of your programs. Maybe that's something that we may not be doing in this country. We're not sitting there to say, okay, we have been doing this for many years. What are the effectiveness? Let's check them. Because like a cliche said, you can't keep doing the same thing and expect a different result. So if you've been saying say no to drug abuse and it is on the rise, then it means that we must check why it's on the rise, what has to change about our messaging. Now, that being said, there are many programs that can be done, evidence-based, that can bring about change. Now, Madam mentioned earlier that, you see, prevention can cut down on all of these things. And my consultant have also mentioned the aspect of drug supply and drug demand reduction. Now, these things are factors that has to be considered. Let me quickly tell you. Now, prevention are different levels. Even rehabilitation is part of prevention. Okay, we have primary level, secondary and tertiary levels of prevention. In fact, there are quaternary level of prevention, and rehabilitation is part of that prevention level. All right, so if we prevent well, it is possible that the demand will not be available. And I've always said this. If a businessman wants to go into a business and he knows that there are no demand for his business, you want to sell chairs, for example, but nobody wants to use chair, they want to use something else. No matter how rich you are, no matter how passionate you are about that business, you won't go into that business because you want to do it. You are going to that business because you want to make money. And
How do we prevent well?
How do you prevent what?
You said if we prevent well. How can we prevent well?
Now, we have to prevent well through, I've mentioned primary, secondary, tertiary, and even quaternary levels of prevention. And e.g., messaging, primary level is when the thing is not even in your, it's not around the person. For example, let's prevent marijuana, for example. It means that we'll, first of all, primary will be that we'll go to communities that have not seen marijuana before. We'll go to people that have not heard or seen marijuana before. And then you start to ensure that marijuana does not get to that place. That's primary. Then secondary, okay, it's here with us. What do we do so that people don't even use it or people stop using it? Which is where the messaging has to come. So if you look at it, you realize that you're even going to carry messages to people who don't use. Because in an audience, there are people who have not used, there are people who are planning to use, there are people who are using. And so even parents also come into that. She mentioned family and all of that. In 2019 also, my organization and Ministry of Women Affairs did training for about 400 women. Okay, and it was targeted on some of these early signs, how to identify early signs of drug use, so that they can identify them in their homes and take appropriate actions. Now, it's not enough again to know early signs. You know early signs, and then you now handle it poorly. Now, again, that's another problem. In fact, sometimes a child will come and tell you, Mom, I am going through this, and the next thing is to start lambasting the child for doing that wrong, or reporting him to religious leader who do not even know what addiction is. Now, so again, the knowledge, psychoaddiction, on what addiction is very important. I hope that in the course of this program, we'll talk about what addiction really is. Because if you don't understand, it will cloud your perspective of addiction, it will cause stigma, and it will cause this same problem to increase. Because you know that this person has a problem. You don't even know what the problem is. You don't understand the depth of the problem. And so you handle it poorly. And it's going to complicate more issues. The issues.
All right. All right. Thank you, Dr. Meza. Dr. Shoyombo, I'm curious, is drug addiction a crime or a medical condition from where you stand?
Thank you very much. May I quickly weigh in on the gender issue and say that the drug use survey established clearly that in the younger age group, there isn't so much of a gap in between the genders. So when you look at young people, both boys and girls are about using drug 50-50. Now, even in the older age group, there is significant use by women. But like you indeed asked, it may be more hidden than men. It's not as obvious. Cultural reasons, they tend to be more discreet in their use, and then the types of drugs that they use may be different. Is addiction a crime? Addiction is not a crime. Addiction is an illness. There is a biology behind it. We must first understand that drug addiction, the primary basis of it is pleasure seeking. All of us have the tendency.
What sort of pleasure?
All of us have the tendency to repeat pleasurable behavior. If you scratch a certain part of your body and it is nice, you suddenly discover that you have a habit. If somebody wants to mimic you, once the person behaves like that, they know that that person is mimicking this person. And there's nothing to it other than the fact that you find it pleasurable. So these drugs that people use lead to the release of certain chemicals in the body that make the person feel very good. There is therefore the tendency to want to repeat that behavior. In the course of practice, one of the most profound things a patient has said to me after counseling and speaking English and all that, the patient said, "Doctor, try it once." And that's where the problem lies.
That's somebody trying to convert you.
So he says, try it once. And he's telling you, look, when you try it, you will stop speaking all this nonsense English that you are speaking. Because you are speaking English when you have not tried it. So what I'm saying is that it is pleasure-seeking behavior, and because it gives pleasure, there is a tendency to repeat that behavior. So the straight answer is that addiction is a disease. It is a chronic relapsing illness. What that means is that it tends to endure for a long time, and there is a chance that the person is well today and unwell tomorrow. So you can never truly throw your hands up in the air and say, "Eureka, we have won this war."
Now, just a moment, Jerry, I'm sorry.
I'm in trouble.
Now, you're talking about the responsibility of a nation. You talked about Arsene Wenger, Alex Ferguson smoking on the sidelines and not doing it anymore because of rules that changed, right? Yes. What would it have cost us, for instance, if we say cigarette is banned? We are not going to be using it anymore. Or is there something I'm missing? Is there something that cigarettes does that is good, that has kept it open? I'm asking because, these are minimum baselines.
Yes.
I went to India at some point, and I always tell people that you couldn't drink freely in India. You couldn't take alcohol freely anywhere in India. You have to buy it and go home. Or you take it, very few places where public, you can't buy it here and open it. They won't allow you. You buy it, you go with it. You don't sit down like we have and have, beer parlors all over the place. So what does it cost to take certain decisions?
Well, as you can see in the last few weeks, you've seen the uproar over the attempt to ban sachet alcohol. So there is a business side of things. So when you come, I don't know if there's any country that has 100% banned cigarette smoking. There may be restrictions. So there's a business side of things. Government hands tax from the tobacco companies. Alcohol is socially sanctioned. There are parts of the country where it is banned, and then there are parts of the country where it is not banned. We do have a duty, however, within these limitations, what can we do? The Film Censors Board will say you cannot show sexually explicit scenes in movies. Are we regulating the music videos? Are we regulating the home cinemas? Are we regulating what people can see? Even social media, is there a regulation on what somebody can show and what somebody cannot show? That is where it starts from. And I'm happy with what you said about India, because it also starts with little restrictions. Even people that are dependent, and that is the height of drug abuse, that the person cannot function without that drug. So you cannot do without smoking. Hey, but you're on a 14-hour flight and it's a no smoking zone.
Yeah.
And you comply.
And you manage.
And you go to other areas and say, this is a no smoking area, and you manage. So putting those restrictions also helps to scale it back. If you can enforce a ban, and it is already banned in the country. Somebody is not supposed to smoke openly in Nigeria as the law is. If we can enforce that law so that a child does not see an adult smoking and feels like, oh, this is cool, I want to be like this person. That is part of the primary prevention, secondary prevention that I talked about in scaling it back. You don't want it to get to people who do not already have the problem.
Many thanks, Dr. Shiombo. Of course, I'll get back to you on the question I wanted to ask, but let me introduce with us now Commander on Narcotics, Shehu Lamua, Deputy Director, Prevention and Sensitization at NDLEA. Many thanks for joining us, sir.
Thank you very much.
All right, you're welcome. We'd like our viewers to know they can be part of this conversation. They can send in comments, questions, recommendations as regards the topic, and of course it will be ready. The number is on the screen. So we look forward to receiving your messages. Before I get back to Dr. Sheyombo, Commander Shehu Lamoa, I would like to hear, your perspective. I mean, we'll set the conversation rolling already, but I'd like to hear from the perspective of NDLEA, how serious is drug use in the country?
Well, according to the, thank you very much first for having me here. National Drug Survey says that 14.3 million Nigerians use drugs. And so what that implies is that...
That's as of 2018, right?
2018 National Drug Survey. And so what that implies is that it's a country where 14.3 million Nigerians are hooked to drug use. Among these, 6 million of them require help. What that also means is that out of the 14.3 million Nigerians, 6 million Nigerians have been debilitated by the scourge of drug abuse. It is such serious that, at all levels, the establishment of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency has been working assiduously to remedy this situation. There are drug control activities ongoing, and there are also the activities of drug demand reduction ongoing. So on a whole bigger perspective, the government and other tiers of government, and particularly the lead agency for drug control in the country, is working assiduously to see that...
Talking about working assiduously, what are you doing to stop supply?
Drug control, majorly. Drug control.
How is that going?
The mandate of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency is twofold. The first one is to control the supply of drugs in the country, and the second one is to engage in drug demand reduction activities.
So my question is, how far have you gone with the control? Because we keep hearing of seizures, but it doesn't seem to be reducing in any way.
Well, what we are doing is going pari passu. Drug demand reduction activities are ongoing. Also, the drug control activities are also going. It is not reducing, yes. It can always get better. The NDLEA is doing its best to see that the public is enlightened on the dangers of drug use. At the same time, the NDLEA is working hard to see that the drugs that these merchants of death bring into the country are essentially controlled. And don't forget, we also have the local productions taking place in the country. And so, joining this work all together, NDLEA is at it, working hard to see that these drugs are curtailed. Drug control, every week, you will see the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency churning out or bringing out statistics of arrests and seizures across the country, from Lagos to Maiduguri, all over the places. And NDLEA is working. There is no week that there is no national bulletin of the number and humongous amount of seizures and arrests that are made across the country.
But we don't get to hear about prosecutions. Why is that so?
NDLEA is, they are there in courts. Once arrests are made, seizures are made, suspects are taken to court for prosecution. And NDLEA has recorded so much convictions over the past few years. 2025 has been one of the largest convictions that NDLEA have ever had in the country. So the question of convictions, once a suspect is arrested, he is taken to court, and the courts adjudicate on all his matters.
Have you considered a rejig of strategies? For instance, are you paying attention where you should pay attention? What's the data that you have, by the way, per state? Because some states may require bigger attention than some other states. How does it pan?
Yes, but as I'm talking to you now, NDLEA has been adopting a national policy on drug, renewed or rejigged its activities. But over the past 3 days, the chairman, chief executive of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, has been in Ondo State, advocating the issues of alternative developments. Alternative development in a way means, because Ondo State is the highest grower of cannabis, so the people are encouraged. He's on this campaign to encourage growers of cannabis to substitute the planting of cannabis with other
food crops.
So it's ongoing. It's a pilot phase that that has started on Monday. The Chairman Chief Executive of NDLEA, Brigadier General Bo Marwa, is there, and he has started the pilot program for alternative development. So these are some of the issues that are, these are some of the activities, some of the programs that are intended to change the psyche and activities of drug production in the country. If we can tackle the issues of cannabis, which is being grown in this country, across a lot of the states in this country, then significantly the activities of NDLEA has been greatly enhanced.
All right, many thanks, Commander. We'll get back to you. Let's get back to Dr. Hope Meza now. When the commander at the NDLEA was talked about rehabilitation, and that's what your facility does, rehabilitate victims of drug abuse. But I'm thinking, does rehabilitation really work? Because, just very few people, who have been addicts come out clean and live the rest of their lives clean. A lot of people always relapse, So does rehabilitation work when dealing with drug abuse?
Yeah, rehabilitation works. And you see, again, my chief was defining what addiction is. And he said it's a chronic. That means there's chronicity in addiction. The same way you can define hypertension, for instance, as a chronic disease of the blood vessels and heart. That is the same way addiction is a chronic relapsing brain disease. In the case of addiction, it's a brain disease, primarily. Of course, drug affects other parts of the body, including the heart, the liver, every other part of the body, kidney and the rest. But the primary target of any drug, any substance, which is why they are called psychotropic substances, is the brain. So, first of all, addiction is a chronic relapsing brain disease. That means that the natural history of addiction is that it's an established tendency for relapse. So, addiction is a chronic relapsing brain disease characterized by other 4 C's. There are 5 C's that must be, highlighted when you define addiction. The first is that it is chronic. The second is that there's a compulsive use. Compulsive means that beyond the person's will, the person is compulsed to use. He doesn't want to. If you meet some of these people who suffer, we don't call them addicts. If you meet people who suffer addiction, but if you meet an addict, when you say that, that is labeling the person. Now, I won't say if you meet hypertension, because I'm talking about someone with hypertension. I will say if you meet someone who suffers hypertension. So you see, that is why we are also advocating. My organization does not just treat people who suffer drug addiction. We are also into advocacy. Many times we have NTA come to cover our programs, our community-based programs, and the rest of the things. And so, first of all, it is chronic. It is compulsive. The person does not want to use. Thirdly, this other sees that there is drug craving. And I always explain this craving with an analogy, that you have an infant who is being weaned from breast milk by the mother. But at midnight, the infant starts crying, asking for breast milk. That is somewhat how the brain of someone who is hooked on substance cries and disturbs the person requesting for the drug. And so you hear families tell you that these boys killed the fence around 2 a.m. to go and get drug. This boy carried his phone and gave it to a drug dealer for a drug worth about 30,000 naira. He gave a phone of over 1 million naira and said, keep it. When I come and pay, you give me the phone. Somebody will remove his Rolex and give to somebody to collect a drug worth 100,000 naira. That tells you that no sane person would want to do that. It means that there's indeed a problem with the person. So it's compulsive. The other C, of course, there's drug craving. The other C is that despite negative consequences, so see, there is consequence again. This person is aware of the consequences. Sometimes You see, the person tells you, oh, this has ruined my finances. I've not been able to save. I've been working for 10 years, nothing to show for it. He knows that this affects his finances. Oh, my wife is threatening to leave me. He knows because of this drug, there is a problem in the marriage. Oh, I have just been served curry in the office. Why? He's been truant to work. Oh, my grades are crumbling. I used to maintain 4 point something. Now I'm 2 point something. I don't even know if I'll graduate. Some even are school dropouts. Now, all of this, you see, that's why the person who has addiction is actually suffering. And like Michael Horton said, it's a disease, and it demands, therefore, to be looked at as a public health concern, not as a moral failure. I understand that some of us will say, no, be them use hand, go take the drug. The first use can be voluntary. Subsequent use, when it becomes addiction, is involuntary. Like e.g., I mentioned the compulsive nature of the use behavior. So subsequent use is involuntary. So, and I'm very happy with the NDLA too. When we began this campaign in 2017, you would probably see when some NDLA officials then would arrest people who are using and the rest. But you see, about 3 years ago, I got called by an NDLA officer on the road who said, Dr. Hope, there's someone with us. She's traveling with her child. We saw tramadol in his bag. We have counseled him. He will need to come for counseling when they get back to Abuja. I mean, that gladdens my heart. It means that also the leading agency for drug control is understanding international standard. It's understanding the science behind addiction, and they are also leading the train in ensuring that people get the support they need. So again, rehabilitation, I've always said to parents, is not a laundry home where you take your clothes after they have been messed up, wash them, get them ironed, and they return to you. Then you get them dirty again. No. There is a role for families to play. I admit tons of patients every month. And then you have people call you and tell you, yeah, my son said he's feeling well. Can he be discharged after a month? However, you have counseled otherwise. And because, of course, they speak with their parents, so they now believe the same person who has his judgment impaired by the substance use, who is being managed. Does the patient tell a doctor that I'm well, let me leave these medications you are giving me? Or you take your car to the mechanic, and the car tells the mechanic, it's okay. My brakes are okay, you don't need to change me. You let the mechanic do the job. So I'm telling you that there are families who have allowed their children to become kings in their home and take decisions that are inappropriate for their health challenges. And so somebody bring in a patient, he counsel for maybe 6 months stay or 3 months stay. And after a month, he is able to blackmail the parents, he's able to emotionally wash them, and they say, let's give him another chance. And he gets out. What do you expect? And even at that, you still counsel for follow-up, for outpatient follow-up and what have you. But many go and tell you, and they spiritualize it, disease, affliction will not repeat itself the second time. They will quote the Bible for you, and they never come back for follow-up. The next time they are calling, they say, Doctor, hope your boy don't start again. You understand what I'm saying?
Well, speak about this feel. Just a minute. Speak about this feel. When the consultant was talking, talked about the feel, and the patient asking him, you don't test them before. Speak about that feel. Is it that it is a permanent thing that makes someone want to stay on it, or is it I don't know how to phrase this question, but that feel that is the attraction for most people. Is it necessary?
Well, you see, like Michael Horton said, if the feel was permanent, you take it once and that's the end, then we won't have problem with dependence, we won't have problem with even tolerance. I'll tell you what tolerance is. Someone is using a particular substance, he took maybe half of that first day, and he felt the feel. He was okay. If he continues, after a week or so, he will discover that the feel he was getting is diminishing with the same dose of the substance. So the temptation to increase arises, which is tolerance. And again, there are different types of tolerance, learned tolerance and what have you. Now, but let me not go too far into that. Now, you see, from time immemorial, human beings have always sought for pleasure. And like he said, everybody wants to repeat a behavior that brings pleasure. Everybody. If you scratch your part of your body and it makes you feel good, you want to keep scratching when you are bored. You want to keep scratching whenever you feel like, let me feel good. And unfortunately, why adolescents are beginning to key into, and that reason is because, like he said again, biologic development. The amygdala and, of course, other brain parts who are responsible for the reward system actually develops first and faster than the prefrontal cortex part of the brain again, who controls long-term judgment, And so the desire to seek pleasure is what, in the part of the brain, is what grows faster than even the desire to think of long-term, to think of consequences. So which is why, again, when you're talking about prevention, we must also look at parents and even these children before they get to that point where, or when they are even at that point where desire is leading maturity. Right? Now, that being said, let me continue with the rehab thing. So you see, rehab again is, I will tell people, recovery is a lifetime journey. Recovery for someone who has taken drug before is not the 3 months you spend in the rehab, it's not the 6 months you spend in the rehab, it's not the 1 year spent in the rehab or even 2 years in the rehab, no. Or the follow-up plan that has been exhausted in the rehab, no. It is a lifetime journey. Till you leave this earth, you are going to be faced an opportunity to use that substance. But you would have to also agree or decide every day of your life that you meet the opportunity not to use. So it's a lifetime journey. So you can be somebody who has been clean for 5 years and relapse. Now, so overconfidence may be the problem. You have been warned on where not to go to, friends not to keep, and all of that. But suddenly your friend that you know takes marijuana. You have been out of rehab for 6 months. You are in rehab for 6 months, out of rehab for 6 months, 1 year clean. And then your friend that you know takes marijuana, calls you and says, it's my birthday, Haba, won't you just come and let's party? And you know that this party will hold in the night. Because sometimes, again, the time of the day are associated with this pleasure and these drugs. And so in psychology, it's what we call association. Just like Ivan Pavlov demonstrated. If he was ringing bell for dogs, and then he'll bring food afterwards, so they salivate and eat. A time came, he just rang the bell, he didn't bring the food, they started salivating. So there are people that at a particular time of the day, they feel like this is the time to have this pleasure. Some people is a time in the month. Some, in fact, for women, what makes it worse again, you see, God has created the women very special. It's because of the hormonal changes they also undergo in the course of the months. There are times in the cycle of the woman that certain hormones are higher, that even leads to seek more pleasure. And so if a woman takes a particular substance during that phase, the tendency to use again is higher compared to when a man who does not even feel this kind of hormonal changes uses at the same time the woman does. And so a term called telescoping, which is the time from when you first use to when you will need help, the 6 million the NDLA Oga mentioned now, right? So it is shorter in women than in men. And then again, my daughter mentioned that women use discreetly. We see women use drugs mostly when they have negative emotions. But you see men, they will use either for positive or negative emotion. He got a rise in his salary, he will go and take substance. He got a promotion, he will go and take substance. But a woman may likely take substance when he is depressed, which is why, of course, we have more women depressed than men. And statistically, apart from the early age where the statistics are mostly same for men, for boys and girls, for use of drug, but in the adult, it's about 1 to 4. Where you have 4 people who use drug, 1 of them is a woman. But then again, I query that because again, my daughter mentioned that there are cultural undertones to this. If you go to the north and you ask a woman, do you use drug? For cultural reasons, he will not answer you. Some place, of course, you cannot even enter to quiz the women. And if the woman uses, he will not even say yes. Why? Because women are demonized in society for using drug. Even at that, despite the 1 to 4, we who are in the treatment center also, we do not see the same representation of use in the treatment center. So you can have 30 male patients and only 2 female patients.
Why is that?
What does that also mean? again, culture. Some persons may feel, let's just get her married. When she marries, she will arrange herself. And we've seen so many homes who are down to the earth because of some of these things.
All right. And that takes me to Hussein and to Rukayat rather. And I'm asking, how much toll does drug use take on a family? How do mothers, caregivers, how do they cope from your experience?
It's very traumatizing in the family system. When there is drug abuse within the children, the mothers bear the burden more because they get traumatized. And just like I've said it, if the family put a check on the kids, they know when it starts. And there's another thing, we talk about pleasure here. Some of these drugs, before they get to abuse stage, they are legally prescribed. And that is where the monitoring is. So if we are even talking under the law to talk about control of drug, now, some drugs are needed in the country. They are needed in the country, so you cannot even ban them.
I'm sorry, let me interject on this note. Only recently I was in a hospital and I saw a box on the wall marked poison. So I just asked the pharmacist, I said, why did you mark this poison? She laughed. She said, well, that these are drugs that, although they prescribe them, they are the ones commonly abused. She mentioned codeine, she mentioned tramadol. So that's control. But has that been enough?
So when these drugs are prescribed in the home, like we talk in the family system, basically the women have the bond to the kids more than to everybody in the family, because you as a woman, you reach out to your husband, to the children as well. So for a drug that is legally prescribed, you should be able to monitor how are they taking it before it gets out of hand. So abuse starts from some abuses. Most of the drugs are legally prescribed. So when you take it according to prescription, it's okay. But it becomes abuse when you take more than prescription.
All right, many thanks, madam. Let's get back to the commander of narcotics now, Shehu Lamuwa. This problem is, I mean, every year we always sit down like this on this program and talk about it, and the figures keep increasing. And I'm wondering why. Like you already mentioned, the NDLEA keeps announcing seizures and all. Are there limitations for the NDLEA? Or if you like, challenges, really, in dealing with some of these, you call them merchants of death. I think that's what you called them earlier.
Yes.
Or if you like, drug dealers, barons, whatever it is that, you know, they would like to tag themselves. Do you have some challenges in dealing with them? Because there are reports that even when you make some of these seizures, these people don't leave the business. Why is that?
Well, people are compulsively craving for money. And so in whatever way possible, people will find a way to circumvent the activities of law enforcement. So the more you arrest some people, the more some others get recruited to go and do this thing. Drug abuse is sadly a lucrative business, and people are looking for all manners of ways to get rich quickly. So the get rich quick syndrome plays a vital role in trafficking of drugs across the world. Nigeria is not the only country that is having this problem, upsurge of drug abuse, but basically one of the major things is a craving for more wealth, for more money, and that's one. Again, education is required more to be able to educate the public on the dangers of drugs.
Is the NDLEA, well equipped? I agree that yes, people would always look for money and go into it. But if the NDLEA overpowers these people, of course we should see a reduction. So, do you have all that you require? The men, the facility to work, and all of that.
NDLEA has the manpower, and it can always get better. We have the manpower basically to follow these people to the hinterlands to go and arrest them. We have the resources to fight this war. And this war is being led by no other person than Brigadier General Abu Marwa, is a seasoned administrator. And we are working hard to get these things done. Well, resources, yes. There is nowhere where everything is enough for everybody. Everywhere they require one or two reinforcements. But I want to assure you that NDLEA is working very hard to turn around the activities of drug abuse in this country. Challenges, yeah, there is no system that does not have its own challenges. And but like I said, it can always get better. NDLEA is working within the available resources that it has to fight these people. Sometimes when you see NDLEA operations and where drugs are discovered, and how drugs are discovered or where they are discovered, you think as if they are very ingenious. NDLEA faces a lot of attacks that are the casualty as face of it, and NDLEA face a lot of different challenges. So even if you finish supplying all the logistics, Nigerians need to know that what we are doing is helping the society. In terms of enforcement of drug activity across the communities, what we require is now all people, all stakeholders, all hands to be on deck. Because people that sell drugs, they are not spirits. They don't sell the drugs in the sky. They sell the drugs in our communities. And people live in the communities where drugs are sold. And so every drug peddler in the world, in this country, has a neighbor. And they don't go to the bush to sell. So consciously, stakeholders, community leaders, traditional rulers, other should come on board. Volunteer information, that drugs are sold in your neighborhood, and they will go and pick the person and the person for prosecution.
Thank you. Now we've got a lot of messages. I think we should take some of them before we go on our break. And this one is from Nandom Wiep in Jos. He said, one can only imagine what a victim of drug addiction goes through, including depression and suicidal thoughts. Treating addicts and preventing the onset of drug use can complement law enforcement efforts to reduce supply. All right, thank you. And from Kasim Umar Bashir from Kanu, said, good morning. Drug abuse remains a serious menace in Kanu, requiring the collective and sustained efforts of all stakeholders to address it. Its far-reaching and negative multiplier effects cut across all aspects of human endeavor, undermining public health, security, productivity, and social cohesion. And from Binta Abdullahi, who is asking a question, and of course to the commander, I said, do you go to the parks, garage, gidanwanka, mechanic workshops, even inside the markets? Because drugs are sold openly, and we feel like nothing is done about it, where goods are being loaded in trucks and offloaded. All right, we'll get to that. And my heart bleeds for many poor families that cannot pay for drug addiction treatment and rehabilitation due to the high costs. The first deposit goes between 500,000 naira to 1 million. What is the government and partners doing to reduce this high cost? I know of 2 families that have chronic drug-dependent persons but cannot afford the treatment, and counseling seems not to be working anymore. This is from Rosemary. And from George Megari from Jos as well. He said, stay away from drugs because they can destroy your health, future, and dreams. Choose good friends. Avoid peer pressure and focus on positive activities. If you or someone is struggling, seek help early. There is always hope for recovery. And from Salisu Tale in Kanu, good morning, NTA. He says you can't beat the rich. May God save us. Drugs abuse is almost in every household in Nigeria. All hands must be on deck to complement government efforts to curb the menace. Thank you to NDLEA for the good job in the midst of so many challenges from inadequate manpower and logistics. And finally, from here, I'm Patrick Richard from Jos. My question to NDLEA Commandant is, can he, in one line, give an average number of young people who are rehabilitated in his command? The number is very low due to the cost factor that the family has to pay for the rehabilitation. It costs us over 350,000 naira in a government facility. In my view, this is extremely high. Thank you, he says.
All right, we need to take a break. When we come back, we'll respond to these questions and more questions that we have. Stay with us. Many thanks for staying with us. It's still Good Morning Nigeria live on the network service of the NTA. I was still talking about curbing drug addiction. We have a clip now. I think we have people who have been rehabilitated, share their stories, or if you like, testimonies about drug use and after it. Let's see this quickly.
I'm a graduate of University of Jos, studied biochemistry BSc, and I'm an alcoholic. Alcohol has really dealt a few blows to me, especially the loss of valuables, job opportunities, family ruckus, social events, insomnia, amongst more and others. But the most recent one, I drank and I fell and hit my head on a rail, And my director saw that I was bleeding, and he couldn't let me go into the classroom to teach the students the scar on my face or the bloody face. So I was suspended. But you know what a suspension is? It might be inevitable. It might not be called back, or it might be called back. So invariably, I'm counting that as a loss also. This is a recent time. This is not up to a month now. Since the commencement of this program, I have reduced. My sobriety has been to a larger extent because I do not take as much as I do take before, and I think I'm rebuilding my health because, as you can see, I'm getting a little bit better than I was looking before. But I was really losing it, both mentally and physically. So I want to thank FIDA for coming to our aid and helping us to realize that all these abuse psychoactive substances are dangerous to both the social and mental health of one.
But since I started this program, I've learned a lot. And I've stopped the drinking. All the friends that I ran away from, they were advising me for good. Now, I'm together with them. But the ones that have been encouraging me to drink, sometimes if they call me, even though I'm around, I do tell them I'm not around because I don't want to drink again.
Stories there, from people who have recovered from drug use. We have our guest still with us, of course, and before we went in that break, we took some messages from our viewers. I just take the ones that I have just so that our, guests can respond to them all at once because, of course, some of the messages are connected. Some of the messages I have right here, this one says, in today's context, my contribution is that the government should double the effort in community sensitization on the menace of drug abuse, and the smugglers of this product should be severely punished. That's from Ayuba Didan in Gombe State. Another one says, good morning, Nigeria. I'm Shehu from Basita. As a sociologist, I love this topic of discussion. Drug abuse is indeed a great menace. Some Nigerian youths see drug sales as a means of making fast money. Those taking drug see it as a means of inspiration. I would say the family has a large role to play. Imagine a situation where a child sees his or her parents abusing drugs. Such a child will see abuse of drug as a good thing. Another one says, good morning, Nigeria. Most of the suspected criminals use drug and substances which lead them to cause damage to the society. That's from Ambassador Williams Victor Kode in Mutumbiu in Taraba State. Another one says, this is from Muhammad Awal Musa Afemai in Kano. Community policing partnership will help in facilitating a complementary approach where the community development workers, police and NDLA officials work together to identify needs, ensuring that security measures are seen as a collective responsibility. Another message says, good morning, everyone in the studio. I must commend highly the NDLA chairman, Buba Marwa, and his team. They are indeed patriotic Nigerians. Please, has the drug test for government officials started? It will help. Fantastic. Many thanks, Binta Suleiman. Finally, this one says, good morning. Where do you recommend as a rehabilitation center? I'm 22 years old guy addicted to drugs. I think now's the time to get response. This last message actually, got me. It says, where do you recommend as rehabilitation center? I'm 22 years old and I'm addicted.
He'll do that offset.
Consultant Shoyombo, please speak to us.
It didn't tell us his location. The first thing I'll say to you, go to the hospital closest to you. Even if you do not know a rehab center, they will be able to signpost you to a place where you can get help. On a general note, because there are other people who are watching, most of our teaching hospitals will have a department of psychiatry that will usually have a drug rehabilitation ward. The psychiatric hospitals are there, 9 of them, federal neuropsychiatric hospitals across the country. Private hospitals are there, private rehab centers are there.
We've said this thing over and over. What affects the poor? Because the same biological factors that the poor has, also the rich also have. So whatever happens to the poor, invariable also will happen to the rich. So if someone takes drugs, if someone peddles drugs, first of all, whether he is rich or he is poor, he is susceptible to the laws of the federation. And because he's a VIP, NDLA has arrested VIPs, have gotten involved with issues of VIPs in the country over and over and over. So there is no law for the poor and the law for a VIP.
But how much of a damage is it when a supposed leader now leads astray?
It's really unfortunate that people that are supposed to be role models get involved in issues of drugs, even in the homes. Parents, in a way, parents that send their children to go and buy drugs for them, or parents that use drugs in the presence of their children, or parents that facilitate the consciously or unconsciously the use of drugs in the presence of their family members, in a way, have become bad role models. And so therefore, it is so damaging that people that we see as, there are celebrated people in the country that we used to see as people that are of good virtues, and ended up getting involved in a messy affair of drugs, and they were ridiculed. And the law is not a respecter of VIP or the poor. Once it is evident that they are involved in issues of drugs, the law, the arm of the law will get at you. So people have to be very conscious. People have to be very careful. There is no law for that once someone is a VIP, he does not get into drugs.
Okay.
And, yes.
All right, Dr. Meza, as we begin to round up this conversation, what are your recommendations? How do we get out of this very disastrous situation?
Thank you very much. You see, I've always said that Nigeria is not a country that lacks policy. What we lack is implementation. There are many policies to regulate some of these drugs that are being abused, and even the diversion of prescribed drugs to the streets for alternative uses. Now, so we just need to implement them. And the NDLA has mentioned that we are working on the National Drug Control Master Plan, which, of course, the previous one had elapsed in 2025. So there's a new one that is supposed to be created to last to 2030. So now what that means is, again, we are going by policies again. But then, have we even been able to implement the policy we advised in 2020 to 2025? I don't think so. Now, so as a way to go, we need to all know that this is not a fight for only the government. Community is important, which is why, like I said last year, we have reached out to several communities in Abuja, in Benue State, in Kogi State. And then what we do in this community is we sit with them. There are people who are willing to stop taking substances. There are people seeking for help. And so we brought them together at a flag-off event. They came in willingly. They were not even ashamed to be identified as someone who used drugs. They came in willingly in the public. In fact, some people, women were even saying, you need this help. They were even laughing about it. They were willing. And so we had the first sensitization program with them, and then we took them through a screening program. We used our psychological test tools to check their severity of use and those who would be appropriate for the program we want to implement. And so this went on for 3 months. Every month we were testing them for drug tests. We're doing drug tests for them. Daily, they were gathering in a hall for group therapy sessions. And then in between, we had individual sessions for them. My expert connected from Abuja virtually for these psychotherapy sessions with them for 3 months. Someone in the government also came in and, of course, supported them with monthly stipends so that they can even come to the hall for treatment. Some had withdrawal symptoms. They had medications to help them manage all of this. Now, this was, supported fully by the governor's wife, the Kogi governor's wife, right? Now, so at the end of the 3 months, we brought them to Abuja here, and then there were partners and sponsors and friends of the First Lady of Kogi State who came together to see what has been done in this period of time. And they saw the testimonials. So all these people that were brought in were negative, and they were empowered economically. Because again, you look at reintegrating in society, if they go back to their usual life, what can happen? Some had to relocate from Kogi State to Abuja, all funded by the First Lady. of Kogi State. Now, so these are some of the things that can be done, and we are looking at how can this be scaled nationally, because not everybody can afford to pay rehabilitation fee in the institution. So if we're able to kill it down there, then it goes that there will be few who would now need to come. Maybe those few be able to afford it. However, even those who need to be admitted fully, who cannot afford, concerned individuals had reached out to me. Just 2 days ago, an organization, I Choose Life Foundation, called me for a patient they are paying for. They admitted the patient 2 days ago, and they are paying for that patient. When I spoke with the patient, he was willing. That's what I said. These people who suffer, sometimes they know that they are suffering, and they're willing to get help, but sometimes they don't even know where to turn or who to help them. Right? So all of this thing has to be done. So you see, it's everybody, investors, people who have the money, who want to invest in human capital development. How do you empower somebody that is taking drugs? So the first thing is even to get the person treated. So it calls on everybody, not just the government, to assist in these things.
Thank you. Now Ruka, if a 17-year-old is listening, what would you advise, him or her to avoid, and why? Of course, bearing in mind the cost of remedy.
A 17-year-old child that is listening to this program now should avoid drug. In the first place, don't even get into it. If you are depressed, you seek for help by talking to your parent, your mother especially.
They say this generation, they call them
Gen Z.
Gen Z. They tell you that they always have mental health issues at the slightest thing.
It's very expensive to cure addiction and to rehabilitate yourself.
What's the range?
It's very expensive, just like they have talked about the price now. I don't know the range of the range as in percentage now. I don't know.
No, I mean, okay, maybe Dr. Meza will help with that, so that we have a sense, the viewer understands what it costs.
But in the first place, you can even prevent it. Don't even start it.
So you don't get to.
And starting it now, prevention now starts from advocacy, and this advocacy starts from the home, from the home. And women has the major role to play, because women in the homes have connectivity between the husband and the kids. I am a lawyer. When you go to a crime scene, majorly the criminals. They are quick to open up to their parents, their mother, than before their father.
What if the father is the influence? How would the mother help?
The percentage of the father's influence is very low.
No, I mean, if the father uses drugs,
yes,
and that's the influence for the child.
You as a woman, there's this biological connectivity as a woman that when a woman is talking to the child, he listens to you more than even the father.
Okay, there's also another issue. We have a lot of single mothers in town, and they have to fend for these kids. So, of course, that's motherly care and attention is missing in so many homes. But, Doctor, we need to round up this conversation. There are stories that people now begin to sniff. People sniff feces and all kinds of things to get high. Those who cannot afford, the drugs and all. Speak to Nigerians generally about this spirit, this intention to get high, that feeling. Why is it wrong? Why should they run away from it? No matter what it is that gets them to that point.
Okay, so let's very quickly talk about the cost of treatment. What I'll say is that treatment in government facilities is subsidized. It will not be as expensive as what we have in private facilities. Private facilities will cost you upwards of 500 to $1 million monthly, maybe more than that, and for good reason. It's not because they are cashing out. It is expensive to provide treatment. However, where government builds the hospital, pays the staff, buys the electricity and all of that, of course the government hospitals are able to charge cheaper. But even at that, it is still out of range for some
average Nigerian.
Why is it wrong for people to chase pleasure? I describe it to my patients like this. We all love pleasure. But if I give you a BMW open roof with a fantastic sound system, leather seats, very beautiful car, no seat belt, no airbag, no brake, it will kill you eventually. As you drive it and play the loud music and dance and move and all that, it is good up until the time when something happens and then it kills you. That's the kind of pleasure that drugs give. It takes them high, it brings them down. We discussed it earlier. It is not an enduring pleasure. It is a fleeting kind of pleasure. Think of it this way. If you take your 3-year-old to an amusement park and he gets on a horse and rides and comes down, is it likely to say, Daddy, let's go home? Or will he say, Daddy, I want to do it
again?
And for as long as Daddy has money, he is happy to continue to climb on that same horse. And because he gets a feeling, he comes down, he wants that feeling again. So that's what the drugs do. So think of anything that is pleasure-giving. Food, sex, chocolate, sports, anything at all. The tendency is want to repeat it. But guess what? All of these things we have mentioned, you cannot compare the pleasure to the pleasure given by these drugs. However, no airbag, no seatbelt, no brake.
All right, thank you. Commander Lamua, are we losing the war on drugs? What is the bigger problem, demand or supply?
But both are a problem, because the fundamental factors that are promoting the craving for drugs, in a way, are not very solid in the country. For example, now, parental resilience, broken homes, affordability, availability, accessibility of drugs, cultural norms that promote the intake of drug and use of drugs. Because there are some communities in this country where drug use is promoted. There are some communities in this country that alcohol is a drug, and for that matter, there are communities in that country that promote the intake of alcohol. It doesn't have to be in a bottle. It could be in other forms of alcohol. So it's a problem. Again, there are communities where that grow drugs. I mean, there are communities in the savannah, part of the country, where drug cultivation of crops, that is very prevalent. So it's a factor also. Then, like we mentioned, parental issues. The first unit of the family is the parent. Once the opportunity for a good parenthood is lost, you expect that the child will grow in a way and manner that is the society will complain about.
So given all of this, are we losing the war on drugs? Because the numbers keep going up, they don't come down.
Well, we are not losing the war on drugs. We are working hard to
win the war.
To win the war. War, like we said, it has to be sustained. It has to be until such a time when it is brought down. We are not losing it. We are fighting the war until when all issues of vulnerabilities are essentially brought down. That's when we say we have completely won the war.
All right, Dr. Shoyombo, is alcohol a drug?
Alcohol is a drug.
Is it a drug?
It is a drug. It is a psychoactive drug. Anything you take into your system and affects how the body functions is a drug. Okay?
Fantastic. We need to wrap up, but I need to take these two messages that we have from our viewers. This one says, good morning, Nigeria. Many thanks, NTA, for always coming up with spot-on discussions all the time. Well done. Oh, wow. This made my day. The curbing of drugs abuse should be more systematic, because some of these drugs were originally health beneficial to man before being reformulated, remixed, and redosed for their own gain. May God bless Nigeria. That's from Kayode Busari. Thank you very much for appreciating the NTA and for always watching. This one says, I must commend the NTA for this topic. You'll recall that 3 weeks back, you guys discussed about 3 days back, you guys discussed about the effects of cultism in Nigeria, and you will agree with me that this contributes to the rise in intake of hard drugs in our society. My advice for NDLEA under General Buba Marwa, retired, should have a spy in all local governments and communities, and also attention should focus on our ladies. That's coming from Destiny Vincent in Lugbe. So that's about it on the program this morning. Thank you so much to all our viewers. We appreciate you. And of course, to our guest in the studio, Dr. Hope Omaiza, founder, Vanguard Against Drug Abuse, VGADA, and Executive Director, VGADA Rehabilitation Center. Thank you so much for your time and for sharing your insight with us. Dr. Olusegun Shoyombo, Consultant Psychiatrist, National Hospital, Abuja. Thank you for warning us about the vehicle without a brake, without airbag,
seatbelt.
And seatbelt.
Thank you.
I would always remember that, and I hope our viewers will remember that too. Rukayat Jumei Husseini, Esquire, founder, Confluence Amazon's Charitable Foundation. It was indeed a pleasure, ma'am. Thank you for all that you do. And of course, Commander of Narcotics, Shehu Lamua, Deputy Director, Prevention and Sensitization, NDLEA. Thank you. And of course, our warm regards to Brigadier General Buba Marwa. Keep up the good work, and we hope that all that you need will be provided.
Thank you.
All right, so that's our package. And good morning, Nigeria. I do not know if Victor will drive a car without a brake. For me, I will not. I'm Yanwe John. Remain tuned to the
I prefer
NTA.
to take a walk. I'm Victor, so we'll see you again on Monday.